With me now is Jeremy Saltan, who is an advisor for the Yamina Party, former political advisor for ex-defense minister Naftali Bennett. Also joining me, Jessica Montell, who is the executive director of the HaMoked's Legal Aid Group. Jessica, I want to start with you. You have called this IDF policy of punitive home destruction, collective punishment that is invalid. Do you reject the very idea that the home destruction policy can be a deterrent for future attacks?
Well, I think there's two questions. First, thank you for having me. The first question is it effective as a deterrent? And the second question, whether or not it's effective, is it legitimate, legal, and moral? Regarding the effectiveness of it, you have conflicting claims from the military itself. In 2004, an internal military report found that it may not be effective in deterring future crimes. In fact, it may actually exacerbate, encourage people to want to try and attack Israeli soldiers or Israeli civilians. And you've seen that in all of the high court proceedings, whereas the military claims and presents evidence in some hearings that it is effective as a deterrent. You also see indications of the opposite, that in fact it's a boomerang encouraging future attacks. But I would say that regardless of the effectiveness, collective punishment is invalid, is immoral and illegal. The state does not intentionally harm innocent people in order to deter future attackers.
Strong words. Jeremy, your response.
My response is it's both effective and it's also the moral thing to do. Look, it's great to go ahead and mention all of these studies from 15, 16 years ago. But, Jeff, you just said very clearly the current defense minister, the previous defense minister, as well as the defense minister before that, all say that, yes, this deters terrorists. When they understand there is a price that their family is going to pay if they go ahead and commit a crime for nationalist reasons. So yes, there is something for them to think about before they go ahead and do so. Second of all, Jessica can talk about this being collective punishment, but it's not. What this is, unfortunately, yes, there's the collateral damage aspect, but this is not collective punishment. What this is a situation where there is a terrorist who has a home, and yes, his family members are being affected, but let's also go ahead and remember that even when someone goes ahead and commits a crime for criminal reasons, his family is affected as well. Now, is this idea of the house demolition something that we should perhaps examine? Yes, we've examined this for decades. There have been numerous reports. You want to take out one or a couple that said one thing? Let's look at all the recent reports. Let's look at all the recent statements by defense ministers, by IDF chief of staffs, both present and former. There's a reason this is the policy. You don't like the policy, elect a different government, elect different leaders.
Jeremy, I want to ask about
Supreme Court.
Jeremy, the fact that these demolitions, though, and we have a graphic we'll pull up here from the IDF, they happen every few months and have been for many years. The fact that they are literally happening dozens of times in recent years, does that in and of itself prove it's not an effective deterrent? It has to keep happening because there are still terror attacks.
So the problem with deterrence is that it's not science, right? What is deterrence? You are stopping somebody from doing something that he planned to do. It's very difficult to go ahead and project a metric that's going to be something that you're going to be able to bring to a judge that you can prove. How many times did someone think about committing an attack and then decide not to? That's not something that the Shin Bet can go ahead and bring to in front of a judge to say, this is why deterrence is working. But actually look at what happened today, right? We had the first launch come out of Gaza in a very long time, right after this Supreme Court decision. Is that not a great demonstration to explain the difference between when we have a policy of deterrence versus one in which they see suddenly there is a different policy being played?
Oh, hang on here, Jeremy. I want to have Jessica to respond. I hear you shaking your head, but Jeremy mentioned the point. You can't measure if someone, how do you know if someone is deterred because they saw the policy of home demolition? We have seen people come forward to police recently, even in Hebron, because they're concerned about a terror attack being carried out, perhaps concerned about their own bedroom being damaged or destroyed if it goes through.
Yes, in fact, it's inaccurate to say there have been numerous reports published showing the effectiveness. There is secret opinions provided to the judges in each hearing. We don't see those reports. I don't know, and none of us know what is in those reports. You have anecdotal evidence, as you have said. Someone who turns in, a famous grandfather who turned in his grandson in order to prevent a demolition, and the opposite last year. An attacker who in his interrogation said what motivated him to commit the attack is a previous home demolition. That's anecdotal information on both sides. I come back to the main point. There is no other policy. Of course, an entire family is affected when a person is put on trial or put in jail, or otherwise there is a criminal justice proceeding against them. This is targeting innocent people. It is destroying the home of innocent people. The person who is accused of committing the act of killing the soldier is not living in that house. He's in jail, on trial. If he's convicted, he will not return to that house in any case. So this is an intentional policy of harming innocent people, and everyone agrees they neither knew about it or supported it before or after the fact.
Jeremy,
intentionally harming innocent people to deter others from committing a crime. There is no other policy that is such a blatant, collective punishment that I can think of.
Jeremy, in recent years, though, there have been bedrooms of 5-year-old kids who have been destroyed and sealed off, little children, relatives of a killer, but they had no idea, of course, what was going to be carried out. Why should kids be punished in some of these cases?
You know, first of all, I want to address the fact that Jessica talked about the fact that not everything has been declassified in terms of a lot of the reports that have been out there. And I understand that she might be going ahead and talking about some older reports since they are out there. So I'm saying look at the public statements by every single person in the security establishment that's been in power for the last decade or so, and she'll see it's very clear. In terms of your point, Jeff, I feel very strongly that although there are conflicting situations when you're dealing with a mix of emotions, what it comes down to is the Israeli government has a responsibility towards its citizens. And when you have people who are going ahead and saying that they are going to try to go ahead and achieve their political objectives through terrorism, it is the government's right, and it's also their place to go ahead and take measures. And I think that it's unfortunate when you have collateral damage, and it's unfortunate. But the situation is this works. Anyone who's been dealing with this issue in the last few years feels that this works.
All right, we'll have to leave it here, Jeremy. I'm sorry for
even brought this to the Supreme Court to begin with.
I'm sorry, we have to end it here because we're out of time. I appreciate the spiritedness of this discussion. Certainly a very controversial policy. It's still being debated to this day. Jeremy Saltan, Jessica Montell, thank you both for being with us on Zoom In. Great to have you both.